Welcome to official Axanar Podcast number 71. I'm your host, Keith M. Sedor. With me as always, you know him better as the man who will do things in the Alpha Quadrant, saving the Federation so that James T. Kirk can have a 5-year mission and beyond. I'm talking about Captain Kelvar Garth, Fleet Captain Kelvar Garth, they later known as Garth of Izar. You know him better as Alec Peters. How are you, Alec?
Hey, Keith, how are you doing? It's good to see you again.
I am doing well. It's good to see you as well. I am very curious to know what the latest updates are with Axanar.
Sure. So we're right in the middle of planning the last day of shooting. So we have one more day of shooting. That is because we had one actor cancel on us. So that actor has to shoot. And then we are actually reshooting one actor who it was things were good, but there was one thing that didn't work about it, and it wasn't the actor's fault. And so we've kind of all talked about it. We all said, yeah, we would like X, not Y. So we're going to reshoot that. So that's 2 actors, 1 day. Right now we're shooting for the end of February, and then principal photography is done. Post-production ramps up to 100%. Right now, Mark Edward Lewis, who is our editor / post-production supervisor, he's working on sound design with Dana Wagner. He and I are working on VFX storyboarding together. And we've already had conversations with our VFX teams. And yeah, so things are going well. I would say that we're basically, ramping down with principal photography and ramping up with post-production. And
so reshoots are part of the game, in a TV, film, what have you. Reshoots are part of the game. You see what your dailies look like. And if it's not what you envisioned, we're going to do it again till we get it right.
What we have to do is make sure that the next 2 episodes are the equal of Prelude, and that is one of the things that's really, really important. One of the things that we have constantly referred to. As a matter of fact, there was a big sea change in what we did when we fired Paul Jenkins as director, basically for his misbehavior. The footage that he shot, Jonathan Lane from Fan Film Factor had seen the footage. And he was like, Alec, have you seen this footage yet? And this is from the 2019 shoot. And I said, no. And he said, you're not going to be happy. I said, why? He says, because it doesn't look anything like Prelude. And which was specifically what Paul was shooting for. He wanted something different. Listen, Prelude to Axanar is the most famous Star Trek fan film. It's one of the most famous fan films of all time. And I can't take credit for the way it looks because that was Milton Santiago and Tobias Richter. But it has a look, and it has, and it was, ground, it was ground shaking, and it was record setting,
earth shattering and ground
shattering. Yes. And it's because it looked so good. So for some,
and to your point, Jonathan Lane's Axanar fan film Interlude did a very good job of carrying over the look and feel of what Prelude gave you. Even though half of Prelude was the talking head aspect of it, the action scenes intercut through those moments had a very distinct feel. It's like Axanar defined what its look in the Star Trek universe is going to be. And I think both the Vulcan scene and Interlude, even though that's not officially Axanar Studios production, it's somebody else's dedication to it. They did a good, they knew Axanar so well, they were able to replicate the look and feel in their original work.
Yeah,
in the Axanar universe.
It's interesting. Yes, and certainly the Vulcan scene, of course, is from us, so that's a masterpiece. It's a good job all around. Interestingly, Josh Irwin, who is the DP for Interlude, he and I this past week were literally talking about because we're talking about other projects together, and he's shooting some Axanar stuff, and we were talking about that, and I basically told him
about the walk and talk.
I was
in the Vulcan scene.
No, I was talking to him about Interlude, and I told him, I said, look, Interlude is early Josh Irwin, and it's ironic to say 2019 was early Josh Irwin, but in the 4 years since then, he has radically changed the way he's gotten better. His stuff is better and better. Every episode of Avalon Universe is better and better. Crisis, he just did Crisis, which is amazing. And I told him, I said, we started talking about bridge scenes, and we started talking about what I didn't like about Interlude and what I did like about Interlude. And there's some great stuff.
Let me ask you this before you tell me. Do you find that there's more that you do or don't like about Interlude?
Probably more than I do.
In contrast to what you've done already.
Yeah. No, I like Interlude. I think there's a lot of good stuff there. Sam Cocking's VFX are just fantastic. Again,
do you know what I love? Do you know what I love about Interlude? It's a little piece of minutia. So if you think about when Axanar takes place, it's not just pre-TOS, it's pre-Cage.
Yeah.
And in the Cage, Captain Pike has this translucent little transistory looking thing. I mean, granted, they made it in 1964 before they realized that it's going to be the future, not Buck Rogers or Flash Gordon looking with their gizmos. But the fact that, okay, a communicator's going to be bigger and fatter 20 years before Pike, that they took the Mego walkie-talkie communicator that I had as a kid in the 70s, took the antenna out of it, painted it, and made it look like an actual usable device. I mean, they literally took a toy that wasn't anything and you brought it in universe. Kind of like the way Lower Decks brought the helmet with the siren on it.
Yeah. That's so funny. That's so funny you say that. Yeah. There's so much I like about Interlude. And certainly the VFX are fantastic. Sam did an amazing job. And there's a lot of shots. Josh is brilliant at shooting on a Star Trek bridge. I mean, he's really fantastic. And so there's stuff that, I mean, even I'm going, wow, I actually look okay on that shot.
Everybody looks great.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, I mean, it's kind of like what it's kind of like what they did with Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, where they use the same physical bridge set to be both the Reliant and the Enterprise. And you did that here with the Artemis and with the Ares. It was the Artemis, right?
Yep.
Okay. And
that
the fact that everybody say again.
Okay, and if I interrupt, that was my problem. Was the big shot, the master shots of the bridge, right? Of each of the bridge, there was no tension on the bridge. Things were happening too slow, and I know, I don't want to give it away, but someone else shot an Ares bridge scene, this year. And it's the same exact thing. And so Josh and I were talking, and he's going to shoot because he wants to use Ares Studios, and so he's going to do some Axanar era stuff. And I told him, I said, okay, let me tell you about what's wrong with Interlude. And I talked about the master shots in the bridge, and then I talked about the problems I saw in this other production, and I refer back and I say, go back. I even sent him a clip. I said, look at the way, for whatever you do or don't like about J.J. Abrams, I said, look at the way he shoots on the bridge. Forget the lens flare. Look at the way he shoots on the bridge, and look at the motion of the camera, and look at the editing, and look at the framing, and it's nothing like Star Trek has ever been seen before, which is okay.
Which is probably why I hate it.
Yeah,
and don't get me wrong, I love J.J. Abrams. I mean, I watched every episode of Alias, first run. So I don't hate J.J. Abrams. I just hate J.J. Abrams being in charge of Star Trek.
Well, listen, and we can go that a whole nother subject.
We'll do that another time.
Yeah, talk about that another time. JJ, for all his flaws as a filmmaker, which I think there are a few. On the other hand, I think he does some things brilliantly, right?
Okay.
And one of them is he does a great job of using a camera to create drama.
Okay.
Using the camera motion to create drama. He uses the framing, and I talked to Josh about that because I could put frame to frame. Look at your action scenes in Interlude, and look at the Kelvin's action scene. I see the Kelvin is happening at 100 miles an hour, and your hair's on fire. I said, it looks like everyone's having a picnic in Interlude. 3 D7s show up, they're shooting the shit out of you, and people are just strolling around like nothing happened. I said, I would never allow that. Okay, so let me just get back. So when we looked at the footage that Paul Jenkins had shot for Axanar, I was like, it looked like he had taken our filmmaking back 15 years. I mean,
really?
It was middle shots. There was no dynamism. There was no, and he had complained that he didn't like the way Prelude was shot. And I'm like, dude, you're not good enough a director to say that Prelude, you didn't like the way Prelude was shot. I mean, Prelude was shot by a brilliant DP and has won a gazillion awards, and everyone loves it. So I don't know who the hell you think you are.
Was that Christian Gossett?
And then no. Oh yeah. I mean, Christian really didn't have much of an impact on the way Prelude was shot. That was really Milton Santiago.
Okay.
And he did it based on that great documentary Fighting Ali. Which if you go back and watch Fighting Ali, you'll go, it looks like the same guy shot Prelude to Axanar, because Milton did a brilliant job. And of the way he shot it. And so to take that and then to dumb it all down, I mean, I could, if we had used that footage, thank God we're not using any of that footage from Paul's shot, because it would have made the next 2 episodes mediocre. So what happened was I brought in Mark Edward Lewis, who was an editor, and I said, Mark, I'm hiring Ted Brunetti to be the director, but I really need someone to focus on being the intermediary between the DP and me, meaning it needs to look like Prelude to Axanar.
Sure.
The DP, Jeff, is brilliant. He's fantastic.
Jeff Fagan.
I said, you need to make sure that what our end product is going to look. We've got 2 episodes that need to happen right after Prelude to Axanar.
Is Jeff still shooting on the Red Komodo Dragon system?
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Everything's being shot on Red Komodos, and we're being very consistent about that. So Mark did a fantastic job. So when we did our first shoot with the new team, Jeff Fagan as DP, Mark Edward Lewis and Ted Brunetti as directors, and Jim Ross as gaffer. That team, when we did our first shoot in 2019, November, with J.G. Hertzler, Rob Hayes, and Raj Kala, the first shot was J.G. Hertzler. And Mark says, come on over here, Alec. And he goes, okay. And he had a split screen. He goes, that's Prelude to Axanar, and that's what we're doing. And it was the same. And I said, perfect. Right? Why reinvent the wheel? Why try and do something new and different? It is like, why in 2010, the year we made Contact, the sequel to 2001 Space Odyssey,
sure,
which happens 10 years later, did they decide to change the spacesuits the Americans were wearing and go back in time 20 years?
Because they filmed it in 1968. I mean,
literally, no.
2010,
which was filmed in the 80s.
No, I'm saying 2001 was filmed literally the year I was born, and 2010 I saw theatrically, rode my bike to the mall as a kid, and watched it in the movies.
Yeah, but what they did was they didn't recreate those amazing spacesuits for 2001 Space Odyssey. They didn't recreate for 2010. They went backwards and used something that looked like it was on the space shuttle, which budgetary reasons, whatever. but it made no sense. Why would you do that? It is.
I mean, do you really expect that they're going to have visual? Do you really expect they're going to have visual continuity across?
Yes, I do.
15 years?
Yes, I absolutely do. I don't think that's a stretch. They had those spacesuits in the background in the hangar base scene.
Oh, did they really?
Yes, they did. So they knew they could make those. It's whatever it was, budgetary, whatever. But that, for me, that is like the one thing in an otherwise brilliant movie that just takes me out of it. But that being said, you don't want to do something like that. So with people expect the next 2 episodes of Axanar to look like Prelude to Axanar, right? We have to deliver something of that quality.
And don't get me wrong, I'm a stickler for continuity as much as the next very precise person, but I also have learned, based on who's running a production, to manage my expectations so I don't get myself all spun up.
Well, listen,
but actually, you know what I did like? You know what I really did like visually on Interlude? When the damage control officer was reading off the damage report, intercutting between he had some tension there where he's okay, they're going to drop, shields are going to drop soon. We can do this, but we got to do now. He had some tension there.
Yeah, no, there was some really good stuff. Jay Clyburn, who was sitting in for Tanaka, he did an amazing job. And I remember shooting that scene where he's reading off the damage report. And he was struggling with that scene, and I kind of worked with him a little. And I said, "Okay," and he finally nailed it, and it's great. And also Tyler Donovan, who does the engineer on the Artemis.
I was on the set when they did that. I was like, "Wow, that is how you repurpose a set. Just bring in some stuff in the foreground." And it really is about how you set up your shot.
Yes.
It's not what's on the set. It's what's in the frame of the camera.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And and Josh has done an amazing job with that. And that's why I would love to go back and just reshoot some of the scenes on the bridge and then edit Interlude.
Sure.
Because I think that I think there's there's a lot of stuff I love in that. And overall,
did that character have a name?
Fantastic fan.
When Jay was in that, did his character have a name?
God, I don't know.
Will he be back in any of the next 2 scenes?
No,
the next 2 episodes?
No, he's moved to Michigan. Jay's moved to Michigan.
Okay.
And so it's he was taking Tanaka's position, and our Commander Tanaka is now local, Vince Canlis. So we'll have him for whatever we need.
Okay.
But anyway, all that being said, they're doing a great job. Mark and Jeff, who are a pleasure to work with. And now remember, we have now shot 5 days of Axanar with the same exact crew.
Okay. Well, that's a way to ensure continuity.
Yep. Ted Brunetti is director. Mark Edward Lewis as co-director. Jeff Fagan as DP. Jim Ross as gaffer.
Now you said co-director. What does a co-director do that would be different from an assistant director?
Basically, Ted and Mark are co-directors because we took the directing job and we split that into 2 pieces. Ted Brunetti, who's one of the top acting coaches in the country, who I've talked with to everyone about. I love Ted, and he has become just legendary on the Axanar set for how good he is. He was George C. Scott and Jack Lemmon's acting coach when they shot Inherit the Wind. He was James Gandolfini's acting coach. So with Ted, I told Ted, I said, Ted, that we had an issue with directors not shooting what we wanted. I said, I want to bring you in and have you focus entirely on performance. And I want Mark Edward Lewis is going to be the guy working with the DP to make sure what's in the camera is what we need. I said, you worry about what the actor you're getting out of the actor. I'll worry about, and Mark will worry about the camera. And he goes, that's fine with me. He said, I'm happy with that. I was like, great. And so I told Mark, I said, Mark, Ted's going to work on this, and and Mark was like, great. So co-director, it's very unconventional. Okay. Very unconventional. But we did it because we have this amazing acting coach, this director who's amazing with actors, but we also need it to look the way we need it to look. There's no sense in us training Ted in what we need when I can just say, Mark, you take care of it. So they're co-directors. That's okay. That's the job.
And they were both okay with that coming in.
Both
that split role,
and it's worked great.
Terrific.
5 days now of shooting, and technically 7, but yeah, it's worked brilliantly. And so I'm very happy that we have a team that we love dearly and has executed brilliantly. And one more day and we're done with principal photography. So
I was to say, when do you expect to be done with the reshoots in principal photography?
They'll probably happen in February. So sometime in February we'll be done.
And then all post-production and visual effects, and then release when?
Hopefully this summer. We'll
see. If there are 2 more episodes to be released, and the 2 more episodes, Prelude was episode 3, so these will be episodes 4 and 5. So the question then becomes, what will be the difference between the time difference between when episode 4 is released and how much later following that will episode 5 be released?
So they'll be released together. So you'll see episode 4 and 5 together.
So basically, we're gonna get it's 2 15-minute segments.
Yep.
So we're gonna get another half an hour of Axanar.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right.
So we had 20 minutes for Prelude. So this is 50% more. And we're telling a big story in a short period of time. But I'm pretty happy with it so far. And we already have an assembly done of each episode, and yeah, it's great. And don't ask me about episodes 1 and 2. There are no episodes 1 and 2. It's just gonna be, unless someone else wants to go and make it. And I don't know. We kind of.
What part of the story would that even be?
I don't know. I kind of thought that one episode would be about one episode would be about the build up to the war. What was that? What was happening beforehand? So I think there's a good historical, but it's probably way more exposition and narrative. And it could include the Romulan War.
I'm Captain Garth of the freighter Bellerophon or Xenophon.
Yeah. So. And then you could do an episode about, about the spies and what was happening and diplomacy and stuff. There's stuff. I haven't planned it. So, but it might be fun to write something and let someone else produce it and do, because those 2 episodes might not have Garth in it.
Well, let me ask you this, Alec, just off the top of my head. This just popped into my mind. Wasn't even a planned part of our discussion. There's a lot of chatter on the high end of the entertainment spectrum about Shari Redstone wants to sell a controlling share of Paramount, and that it could wind up going somewhere else, and that the fate of Star Trek is tied into that potential sale. What would your attitude be if somebody was ever looking at, while they're doing their due diligence and they look at the last 20 years of CBS and Paramount, they said, what's this, lawsuit and this Axanar? And then somebody shows them, Prelude and stuff like that. And they say, wow, this is really good. And they said they would let us make this and not give us any pushback. Again, I'm shooting for the stars here, but what would your reaction be if somebody new under new ownership of Paramount said, hey, we'd like to explore making this because we've seen your original concept and the fan films that followed and the parts that you played in the sandbox, in the lines with, and you still made great content. What would you think, long and short, if CBS actually came to you at some point, Paramount came to you and said, we'd like to do more and bring this into official canon?
I'd say, have you fired those other guys first?
Kurtzman's got to go.
Have you gotten a new law firm yet? Assuming the answer is yes, then I would say, yeah, I'll tell you where fan films should fit in your strategy, and and which was basically, look to what Lucasfilm is doing. Look at all the Star Wars fan films. Holy crap! That is
and they're not suing their fans for giving them free publicity.
Right. I don't want CBS.
I'm just thinking there's going to be a whole change of ownership. Maybe you get somebody in there who, unlike Les Moonves, actually likes science fiction. Maybe loves Star Trek.
Yeah, well,
just a thought.
It's not that, granted, Sherry Redstone probably doesn't care much about Star Trek one way or another. But I think there's ways to go. Listen, I think the fans know, whether it's Prelude to Axanar or it's Terry Matalas's Picard season 3, the fans know what they want.
I want more of what Terry Matalas did in Picard season 3. I want much, much more of what the Hageman brothers have done with Prodigy, and I want way much more of what Mike McMahon has done with Lower Decks. I mean, the Hageman brothers. I mean, forget the medium of animation, because I think that stops a lot of people right at the door. Yeah. Oh, it's animation. Forget it. The storytelling in Prodigy and the storytelling in Lower Decks, and you can call Lower Decks fan service or you want. As far as I'm concerned, it's Easter eggs to the diehards. So, but it's not done in a yes, it's a little on the nose.
Oh yeah,
but it's done in a fun way.
Oh yeah. No, it is done in a brilliant way. I mean, Lower Decks is brilliant, and Prodigy. I have not gotten deep into Prodigy, but everyone I know loves it, and they love it for all.
Oh, you haven't done all 20 episodes of Prodigy yet?
I have not.
Well,
no.
Here's a fun bit. I don't know when this episode's going to drop, but not only did Netflix pick up Prodigy,
right?
Prodigy goes live on Christmas Day on Netflix. Just found that out.
Oh, okay.
As of our recording today. So anybody who hasn't seen Prodigy and hasn't picked up the Blu-rays or the DVDs can see all 20 episodes. So 10 and 10. They released it in 2 parts for season 1. Alec, it is one of the best Star Trek stories ever told, bar none. Bar none. I promise you. Once you get to know these kids as characters, and then you bring in Kate Mulgrew playing this older, more seasoned Admiral Janeway, cut in between a hologram of her younger in her prime version, because Kate Mulgrew's in every episode, either as a hologram of her or as Admiral, looking for the kids who have this mystery Federation ship. I promise you, I know you like animation, but there's a lot of people who don't. Even if you don't, if you look past the fact that it's an animated show, the story is one of the best Star Trek stories ever told. And it's not, I mean, it can be for kids, but it's one of those shows that, like, if the adults watched it too, they would love it also. So, getting off my soapbox about Prodigy, let's actually stick with Axanar and talk about the business end of things. Let's talk about the fact that the full donor financials from Axanar from 2014 to, was it 2016?
Yep.
Were just released?
Yep.
Why did you wait until now to release the full financials?
Yeah, I actually wanted to release them in March of 2017, right after the lawsuit, because these were prepared during the lawsuit. And and I wanted to release them, and Mike Borden, the guy who was our PR director at the time, didn't want to release them. He wanted to release a summary, which we released, which was a much higher level summary. I didn't see the purpose of that, but he didn't, he just felt like, let's move on. And we don't, if you put out too much detail, people are going to obsess over the detail and lose sight of the big picture. And he threatened to quit over it. And I was like, all right, fine. If it's that important to you, we won't release the full financials. When he left the project in like 2019 or whenever he left. It
was pre-COVID, right?
2018. I think. Yeah. I think he left in 2018. I should have said, okay, well, you're gone. I'm releasing him now. And I never did. But, we still have there's a lot of idiots who are still out there saying, "Oh, Alec embezzled money" or whatever bullshit. And this is a way of saying, "Hey, here are the financials, people." I mean, we have been saying forever. Look, our lawyers saw the financials. Our accountants in LA saw the financials. When we moved to Atlanta, we had a new accountant, Fraser and Dieter, one of the top film production accountants in Atlanta. They did our.
So not just an accountant, not just an accounting firm, but actually an accounting firm that specializes in film production.
Yeah, and they did our taxes.
So they know a thing or two about a thing or two.
Yeah, and listen, the young lady who's our lead, she was like, "You are so organized." She said, "You're like in the top 10% of all our clients." I was like, "Really?" She said, "Oh yeah, your stuff is easy for us to do," because I kept immaculate records. And I mean, we do it even better now than we did it. I mean, back then I didn't separate donor funds from the money that I was putting in. It was all mixed up, which I was like, "Oh, I'll separate it out in Quicken. It's easy." Now I keep the donor money, which of course now is one donor rather than multiple donors. It goes to a separate account. So it's a lot easier. And I'm not. Honestly, I'm putting very little money into Axanar these days because I'm pretty broke after putting so much money in over the past 10 years. But, I wanted the financials out there. I mean, listen, we had some industry experts, 3 industry experts do a review of the financials. And we put out we called it our Independent Financial Review Committee. And we said, "Here's everything." This is when we were in LA. "Here's everything. Go through it and write a report." And if there's
what was the process of reviewing the financials?
Well, I gave them all the detailed financials, so they got like the line by line, like what you see is a category summary. It's called. Mm-hmm. They got the line by line, like, so we're a category
of each category.
Yeah, category maybe. I don't know. Maybe say the category is production services. Okay. $15,000. Well, they got the one that broke it down. Well, $50 for this and $125 for this, and they got the details. And every one of those details is backed up by a corresponding receipt. And as there's a photo from back then when you'll see there's a big binder of receipts every year and a small binder with all the statements and the reports in it. So it was all pretty, it's all pretty, it's pretty upfront. And it's, I mean, admittedly, I said, I was running, there's 2 sets of financials. There's donor financials.
Right.
$1.4 million came in over those 3 years. $1.4 million went out. But there's also overall financials, because Axanar Productions was my full-time business. And so I was running all the legitimate business expenses you run when you're a business.
Okay.
For all my car, paying for entertainment, paying for buying the team lunch, paying for, whatever those things are. Books and magazines that they were using as reference, whatever, anything that was a legitimate business expense, but not being charged to the donors, I was paying for. That was all in the accounts as well. So you have to separate that out. So there's 2 accounts. There's 2 reports. There's overall expenses, or the master spreadsheet, and then there's donor.
All the minutiae.
Right. And overall, and so basically it shows you that in 2016, basically I put $100,000 of my own money in. So I wanted to show those things. And hopefully someone looks and goes, "Oh, okay, Now,
who has reviewed the finances?
Well, like I said, the lawyers reviewed it during the lawsuit, and listen, both sets of lawyers reviewed it. What happened was we gave
both yours and CBS's.
No, CBS review. Yeah, you see, yes, but my lawyers and CBS lawyers both reviewed the finances.
Okay.
At first, we gave them the overall finances, and they were like, "Well, you spent money on tires for your car." Yeah, I did, and I paid for it myself. But that money all went through by going through Axanar Productions, that becomes a legitimate business expense, right? Well, well, that means you were using donor money. No, I was using my money. They were totally unable to make that connection. So after my deposition, I said to Aaron, my lawyer, I said, what if I just go back and rip out all the expenses that I paid for and just show them the expenses, the donor money in and donor money out? She said, yeah, do that. So we did it and sent them a new set of financials, and they demanded another deposition. And so in the second deposition, they grilled me on the second set of financials. And I was like, yeah, this is, you're worried about the donor money, which, let's face it, CBS wasn't worried about the donor money. But they needed reasons to they're an adversary in a legal proceeding. They're going to do everything they can to win, right? And so I was like, yeah, those are the financials. Do you want to know where the donor money went? There it is.
And what did the accountants say?
And the accountants the accountants care about the overall financials because that's what they base the taxes on, right? Which is the reason we ran the stuff through the company, was so we could generate expenses that, what legitimate business expenses are tax deductible.
Okay.
What happened was my accountant in California really helped me synthesize everything and clean everything up. And then we moved.
Right.
And so I didn't have him do the taxes. I hired this huge firm in Atlanta, and I said, let's do the taxes. And they went through everything and answered a couple questions we had about money that was transferred from one year to another, and handle that. So, and then the Independent Financial Review Committee reviewed them while we were in LA during the lawsuit. But listen, honestly, it's funny that the Axanar haters are, they're always claiming that I'm grifting or screwing somebody out of something.
Why do they do that?
Because they have no lives. They're a part of those people who feel it's better to tear someone down than achieve something themselves.
Sure.
But they were like, well, you haven't been audited. Okay. So our law firm, two sets of accountants, and an independent financial review all think our financials are cool, but you need an audit. How sweet. Didn't
CBS freak out about your financials?
They did, but ultimately there was nothing they could say because we proved everything. If they had raised the issue in court, they would have gotten slammed down because there was nothing wrong with our financials. What
was their problem though?
The problem was they were trying to find a way to make me look bad, which they have continued to do. They pulled the same crap in the arbitration where they say, oh, well, you spent this money mostly on your girlfriend and you. I'm like, come on, that isn't even close to true. But they want to vilify me because they want to distract from the fact that the reason they sued us was because Axanar was too good, and they couldn't let they couldn't let it be. But that being said, I told the haters, you want to pay for the audit? That's fine. Put up $20,000 for an audit, and I'd be okay with that. Honestly, I'd be okay with it. And I was talking to some of our guys today, and I was like, we really should get an audit.
Maybe they could do their own Kickstarter.
We should let the haters pay for the audit. We'll do the audit. I mean, I got literally nothing to hide. Like,
that brings me to my next question. How do people know the finances are accurate? So you're willing to do an audit.
All backed up by receipts and statements, right? When we say there's $1.43 million came in on donor money, and $1.43 million went out for these expenses. So that all those expenses break down by category and then break down by line item, right?
Okay.
And so each category has different, there might be 30 line items, there might be 300 line items or whatever. For every line item, there's a record in a bank statement and a receipt, right?
Okay.
Sometimes there aren't receipts because you lose receipts, but it's in the bank statement and mostly receipts. This is how you do your finance. Any person is going to do their finances. I do my taxes every year. Do my own taxes. I use my Quicken report. I got my bank statements. I got my receipts. If I ever get audited, it's all there, right? Which is the way you need to be, because you need to have it so buttoned up. If they come in, you need to say, "Here you go. Take a look. This is how I came up with everything."
You've got attorney credentials. Sounds like you're detail oriented enough that you could have CPA credentials if you wanted to.
I'm a Virgo, which means I'm really organized, and I aced accounting in college. Yeah, I mean,
there you go.
Accounting. I would be an accountant because I just think it's fascinating. I love the way everything has to balance out, it works out great. It makes a lot of sense to me, but it's just kind of boring. So I'm, what I want to do is make, say to the haters, fine. You think there was malfeasance, put up the 20 grand for the audit, and
you'll demonstrate that there's not.
Tell you what, if there is material malfeasance, I'll pay for the 20 grand. But I know not, because I know it's in the books. It's all there. So they're going to pay for an audit, and then we get an audit that says, yeah, your books are great. I'm sure an auditor would say, don't mix the funds that way next time, because we don't anymore, right? Now donor funds are donor funds. My money is my money. The money I put into a venture is, you separate it very clearly, so there's no question. Because I've always relied on the Quicken reports. A Quicken report, and Quicken's become better and better over the years. But yeah, there's what do they call this? The standard operating procedure for accounting. Yeah, there's things that I didn't do particularly well 10 years ago that I do much better now. But it'll all stand up to an audit, no problem. So come on, haters, come up with 20 grand so we can and shut your mouths, and then you can all go away. Since they all claim that the only reason we're here is to keep you honest, to prevent you from grifting other people. Well, if that's proven wrong, then you're all going to go away, right? You won't be stalked.
I'm hoping that the reason you're here is to give us some more cool Star Trek, dude.
That's right. That is the reason. Have more cool Star Trek, and there's going to be a lot more good stuff.
I certainly hope so. All right. Well, Alec, tell our listeners where they can find out more about you, about Axanar, and how they can get in touch.
So first of all, everyone should go and read the article on the blog. The Axanar website now is run by the Axanar fan group, and so I gave them everything, so they could write.
Is that still Axanar.com?
Axanar.com, and there's a new blog article there about the finances. You can literally see all the finances, all the category summaries, and the spreadsheets, and everything. And so I encourage donors, everyone, donors, non-donors, whatever, read it, read it, and then, try and tell me, what you think is wrong. And it's interesting. I actually had someone who used to work for the IRS post a comment on it the other day, and I read, and then another friend, actually, someone acquaintance through Axanar, had some comments, and I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. So go read that article. I think everyone should read the article and understand what the finances, how the finance, because people think, oh, well, you didn't make a movie. Where'd the money go? Well, It's not like you put in $1.4 million and pop, a movie comes out.
Exactly.
You're spending years doing it, and all of a sudden, someone sues you and stops production and ruins your production and wastes your money because they're suing you for 13 months. So there's a reason why it's going to come out 10 years later.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you had a year, you had 13 months of a lawsuit, then you had a year and a half of COVID, and then you had, almost 2 years where you weren't doing anything because Paul Jenkins filed a fraudulent copyright on the Axanar script, and we were like, well, we got to reshoot everything, So there's reasons things take long, but we're trying to make sure everyone stays informed. And the problem is people don't, but you can by going to www.axanar.com.
Okay.
And read that, or go to our YouTube channel, Axanar on YouTube, also run by the Axanar fan group now. And I'm still doing videos for them. The podcast is going to go on that channel. We really try and update everyone and keep everyone informed and let everyone know what's happening. Ultimately people are always like, well, when's it coming out? Well, next year, which is soon, about to be the middle of this year in 2 weeks, right?
Right.
In 2 weeks, I'll be saying.
By the time we get to the summer solstice, we will have more Axanar.
You will have more Axanar. But so those are the two sources, Axanar.com, Axanar on YouTube. I'm Alec at Axanar.com. You can always email me directly. Find me on Facebook, Alec Peters. I think it's Alec Peters 2 is my.
Okay.
But just put in Alec Peters. You'll find me and you'll find some famous basketball player.
How's your jump shot, Alec?
I'm the short one. There you go. That's the best way to get a hold of. I love talking to fans. We're all fans, and we can all talk about things. And if you have questions and listen, as I've said to others, I said, you want to come see the financials? You want to see the receipt books? You want to do your own little audit? Come on down.
There you go.
That's cool. I'll give you a day. I'll give you a day to go through everything and see that. If you got a wild hair up your butt about it, feel free. I'm more than happy. But I just gave a tour to someone of the studio the other day who was interested in seeing the bridge and was a donor. And we always like talking to Johns. We're going to be doing Axicon again next year.
Okay.
We will revive that. And being that so many of the actors were here in LA, in Atlanta, we will have a lot of actors there too. So yes.
Will there be a shoot going on at Axicon like there was last time?
No, there won't be. But we got some fun things planned.
All right, we'll look forward to them.
And there's some big news on the studio too. There's a new executive director of the studio. There's a new board. So yeah, we can always talk about that at another time.
Excellent. All right. Good news, Alec. I like it. And I'm sure our listeners are equally excited to hear all the updates, as well as the fact that you've been very diligent about maintaining transparency on Axanar's financials. In the meantime, you've been listening to official Axanar Podcast number 71. We'll catch you next time.
Live long and prosper.